You know, when we talk about end-of-the-world prophecies from the Bible, there's one image that just leaps to mind for almost everyone. The entire world just consumed by fire. It's intense, it's a little terrifying, and it all comes from this one single, incredibly powerful passage that we're going to decode together right now.
The elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth shall be burned up. Wow. I mean, that language is just so vivid. It sounds like total cosmic destruction, right? The end of literally everything. And you can see why. For centuries, people have read that and thought, yep, that's it. That's how it all ends. But what if that's not what it's about at all? What if we've been reading it wrong? What if it's describing something completely different, using a kind of ancient prophetic code? Well, that is the mystery we are about to unravel.
All right, so let's start with the most popular take. The idea that this is a pretty straightforward prophecy about the future destruction of the physical universe. It's a powerful image for sure, and on the surface, it seems to make a lot of sense.
But to really get what Peter is saying, we have to put on our detective hats. And our first major clue is a phrase that keeps popping up, the day of the Lord. And it turns out this is not the first time this phrase shows up in the Bible, not even close.
And here's a pro tip for solving a New Testament mystery. You almost always have to look for clues in the Old Testament. See, this phrase, the day of the Lord, it wasn't new. It was a well-known warning signal long before Peter ever wrote it down.
Okay, so take a look at our first clue. From the prophet Zephaniah, he talks about the day of the Lord using some really intense language, wrath, trouble, desolation, but he's not talking about the end of the planet. He is specifically describing God's judgment on ancient Judah, a judgment carried out by the Babylonian army. It was a real historical event that already happened.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. Our next clue. The prophet Isaiah uses the exact same phrase, the day of the Lord, and even super similar collapsing universe language. I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place. But again, if you look at the context, it's crystal clear. He was prophesying the historical fall of Babylon to the Medo-Persian Empire.
And just to drive the point home, one more. Obadiah says the day of the Lord is coming for the nation of Edom. And where is Edom today? Exactly. It doesn't exist anymore. That prophecy was fulfilled thousands of years ago. So we're starting to see a pattern here, right? This phrase consistently refers to a historical, political judgment against a specific nation. Okay, get ready, because this is the moment the whole case breaks wide open. Just look at this side by side. On the left, Peter's prophecy. On the right, a prophecy from Isaiah about the historical fall of Edom. The heavens shall be dissolved. The elements shall melt. The language, it's almost identical. So, if we know Isaiah was using this fiery cosmic language as a symbol for a kingdom falling, doesn't it make sense that Peter was doing the exact same thing?
This is the key. The whole thing hinges on this. We're not looking at a literal description of astrophysics. We're looking at a well-established poetic metaphor. In the language of the prophets, when a universe collapses, it means a political world, a kingdom, is falling.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Let's bring in an expert witness, from a source you might not expect at all, Sir Isaac Newton. Yep, that Isaac Newton. Turns out, when he wasn't busy with gravity and physics, he was a serious student of biblical prophecy, and he cracked this very code.
Newton laid it all out. It's like a decoder key. When the prophets talk about heavens and earth, they mean a political world, the rulers and the people. The sun, moon, and stars, those are the kings, the authorities, the big shots. So, shaking the heavens or dissolving the earth is just a powerful symbolic way of saying the complete and total overthrow of that political system. So now that we have the decoder ring, let's apply it. Peter was writing in the 1st century, right? So we have to ask, was there a major political world on the brink of being shaken and dissolved right at that very moment?
Oh, you bet there was. The New Testament gives us this clear chain of warnings. First, Malachi predicts an Elijah figure will show up right before this day of the Lord. Then, Jesus points to John the Baptist and says, he's the guy. And what does John say? The axe is laid to the root of the trees. He's basically shouting that time is up. Then Jesus himself puts a clock on it, saying, this generation shall not pass away before it all happens. And Peter, the guy who wrote our prophecy, urges people to save yourselves from this untoward generation. All the signs were pointing to something big and something imminent.
And just look at how this lines up with actual history. Jesus predicts Jerusalem's fall. The persecution of Christians under Nero gets absolutely horrific. Then Nero dies, and the entire Roman Empire, the whole known world, gets plunged into a brutal civil war.
And it all leads to this climax in AD 70, when the Roman army completely levels Jerusalem and its temple, the center of the Jewish world for 1,000 years.
The sheer scale of this catastrophe is hard to even wrap your head around. The historian Josephus, an eyewitness, he recorded that over 1.1 million people died in the siege of Jerusalem alone. This wasn't just some minor event. This was the absolute total destruction of a world, the political and religious world of ancient Judaism. It was, in every sense of the word, an apocalypse.
So if the fiery destruction of the heavens and earth was the fall of the old Jewish political system, what about the second half of the prophecy? Peter also promises new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. What's that about?
Well, if we stick with our prophetic code, the answer becomes pretty clear. The old heavens and earth was that world order centered on the physical temple in Jerusalem and the old covenant. So the new heavens and new earth is the new order that was established right in its place. The spiritual kingdom of Christ, the new covenant, centered on the church and open to all nations, not just one.
And that's really the crucial point here. Peter's prophecy is describing a transition. It's about the end of an age, the end of a specific political and religious world that had to happen to make way for a new spiritual one. It's not about the end of time, but the end of the old times.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. If this famous prophecy, the one about the world melting in fire, was actually a symbolic description of a first-century political event, what does that mean for all the other end times prophecies? It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe we should be looking for the end of a world, not always the end of the world.